Yeah, and that is what exactly what you said. It's a hero that is going to stand in front. He's going to be the one who's going to try to deal with this last track whenever those tier 1 defenses come. A little bit concerned because Dark Centaur, it's an okay lane, but it's not that same combo that I feel like so many offlaners just want to be playing with a Rubik nowadays. Everybody just wants that hero right next to him. And now I think almost assuredly this is probably a Husky Weaver. Can only imagine Infamous are going to ban out more safe laners here, but at the same time, I think now what the Sacred play, it really is a battle of the offlaners in in these drafts. Whoever's able to get whatever feels the most comfortable for them. I think that Sacred very likely could just pick up the Sand King. Of course, when you ban out heroes for that Weaver, a lot of the heroes that you don't want to play against as that SK are also taken out of the pool, so we could very well or very likely see him go for that kind of pick. Not to mention, it's just Rubik Sand King then. You just have a lot of burst, you have a lot of setup, you're able to play off each other. I think they're going to look for some type of combo play like that because they do need, at the same time, on Infamous, some type of front line. You can't just stick this Lush out in front of everything else because those are those opportunities where suddenly 4 Zoomers are able to pick your Lush, take him off the map for 30 seconds, and that hero just hates eating those deaths.
And we'll see what the choice is here. It's not going to be an
Oh.
offlaner as of yet. Instead, they'll grab Lumiere's Medusa, and, well, at the end of the day, this is always something that you come back to with Lumiere, right? He has, in more recent times, started shifting towards a little bit earlier fighters, but at the end of the day, he is still, at his core, a very farm-heavy player, and the Medusa really just plays right into that style.
Yeah, and not just that, they're saying pretty plain and simple here. If you guys aren't going to build damage, then we're going to just pick Medusa, and we have the best carry for when you have damage problems. And that's something that for Zoomers, honestly, how do they fix it? I think the anti-mage would have been great. I think that would have been their go-to here, but that's where Infamous do probably have a really good job here to cover the Medusa. Of course, you think of heroes like the Monkey King, you think of heroes like the Ursa, you immediately think of the PL. Can only imagine we're going to see a PL ban coming out here, but then you're playing PL into Lash, and then things are about to get pretty messy, I think, for 4 Zoomers once they pick up Costabile's hero here. I think Sacred at the same time is going to be kind of put on the ropes when it comes to his hero pick. We might see him get shifted away into something a little bit less ideal, but at the end of the day, when Infamous picked this Medusa, they basically are saying the rest of our lineup doesn't matter as much. We have this Medusa who's constantly going to be farming, who's constantly going to be looking towards that kind of weight point where suddenly you naturally don't have anything you can do on the 4 Zoomer side. They're going to need to pick something crazy for Costabile here because they have the control. They've got Dark Will Void Spirit. When it comes to this Medusa actually hitting tower, she is going to struggle just a little bit more, but at the same time, it's just going to be a struggle. And I think there's going to be that tipping point where that Leshrac is now going to have this Vanguard and the Medusa to get onto these towers, and it just might fast forward that lineup a little bit too fast, and 4 Zoomers might not be able to deal with it.
Yeah, outside of the Centaur, they don't really have that hero that can just stand in front of a tower, and even if the Centaur chooses to fill that role, I'm not sure he's going to be as effective at doing it as a Tidehunter or a Sand King with a Vanguard picked
Yeah.
up, something along those lines. So, see what they do. The Morphling will be the final ban, so Infamous are kind of banking on the fact that maybe the Leshrac's going to be enough to dissuade the PL pick out from the 4 Zoomer side, although at this point, I don't know. They could still try to push it through. You mentioned the Ursa earlier on for Costabile as well could be an option, and you do have a little bit of lockdown to get him into the fight. You also just have the Stampede, so if you really are having problems keeping the Ursa on target,
Prowl? No, it is Ursa.
okay, yeah. So the Stampede will be there to just push him directly onto whatever target he wants, and I guess they'll have to really just bank on that Ursa dishing out high levels of damage. A natural sort of diffusal builder there as well to deal with the Dusa.
Yeah, and he does have some pretty brutal timings. Unfortunately, you kind of have to pick Ursa into those natural Yules builders like Flesh that you're going to immediately have that answer to the Enrage every single time. So it's not ideal, but it's something they kind of had to
Oh.
go for. Oh, and this is so sick. And
Mm-hmm.
then Sacred just Venos him. Well, this is a second pick. As we've seen so far in this tournament so many times, it just is so impossible. They pick the Medusa, seeing 4 heroes that don't have any burst damage, and then they pick Venom to counter your Ursa, who's supposed to be your answer in lane. It's just second pick right here. I think that 4 Zoomers, they've got some things going for them. The biggest part about their lineup that should be able to succeed is that Gunner Void Spirit. Of course, in the mid lane, you always have that draw that pretty much happens every single time nowadays. But that just means he needs to get very, very active. If we can see him pop up in that Venos lane every single time, find the kill, get Costabile off to a better start, as Costabile is going to be mode recovery pretty early on here, just because he's countered completely. He's got a lane that is absolutely miserable. He's the only melee hero in that lane, so he's the one who's going to be eating all of that harass. He's just not naturally as tanky as I think some other heroes that maybe they could have gone for, but that's where blind pick really is just that brutal.
Yeah, and the thing is with Sacred here as well, you pick him up to sort of deal with the Ursa a little bit, but depending on the itemization, Sacred can really become an issue for the entirety of that lineup. Another hero who could potentially pick up something like a Yule's or a Force Staff, or even be the hero to grab something along the lines of a Spirit Vessel just to make the likes of the Ursa and the Centaur that little bit less sustainable. So feels like Infamous have really put themselves in a solid spot here, and this lineup is exactly what we were talking about, ET, earlier on when we were only seeing the Leshrac. This is a lineup that you cannot afford to fight against for 30 to 45 seconds. You will lose that fight, pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, and not just that, if four zoomers aren't incredibly quick, it's an in and out type of strategy. They need to find their kill, they need to run away, and then they need to reset. They really need to drag Infamous over and kind of need them to burn out before they do, because unfortunately for four zoomers, with those first four picks, they don't have the burst. They're in that same field. It just feels like it's going to be a game of chicken almost for who actually ends up being the ones to fully commit. And if four zoomers aren't incredibly clean, they will just get stuck in this almost unwinnable position.
Yeah, it's got to be so fast for them, as you said, kind of hit and run tactics at this point. Ooh. Okay. It's a little bit funky loading in, but I think we're okay. Sorry about the fake out, folks. Got to deal with the black screen for just a moment. But we are in. We are ready to go here, and just as another reminder here, I said we would after the draft. The Leshrac on the Infamous side being played by Samum. Samum is alone. He has changed his name, but it is still the same player there. So in case you're wondering why the Leshrac has a name you've never seen before, that is why. Alone changed it up, but the roster remains the same here as we are going to get Game 1 underway. Infamous, well, on paper, looking like they've got the better draft, but for Zoomers, we'll see if they can sort of play that tempo game. And ET, that really has seemed like the theme really throughout the entirety of this event. That team that sort of goes for the more up-tempo style tends to be the one having that move pay off for them. Very rarely do we see a team push early like that and fail to take the advantage.
Yeah, and at the very least, if you talk about power spikes, if you talk about Infamous, there is going to be that awkward timing where you have a Veno in your off lane. You have to use the Plague Wards to actually be that vanguard for the Leshrac to push out onto these early towers. It's a situation where your draft is going to look a lot better 30 minutes into the game, where that Medusa is the true frontliner that you drafted her for. So we'll have to see how Simum actually decides to play, because those are those instances where the Veno is not that frontliner that is easily able to sync up with the Lesh around the 10-minute mark, and it's an opening that four zoomers can definitely punish, but it's where those punishes are just going to matter so much for their game plan to actually work. And as we talk with a lot of lineups, four zoomers have to win so many fights. They have to get so many Roshans, where Infamous, they really don't have to have that much pressure put on them.
Yeah, the Infamous lineup can take, I mean, honestly, at certain points, maybe not even a full fight, just a pick off or two, and then you've got Duso, you've got Leshrac, you've got Veno, so you're going to be able to just push out and start pressuring up objectives. So they have a much easier time getting that pressure on. Speaking of pressure, Moo, he's going to take a little bit of early damage here. This is what you pick up the Centaur for, though. He is going to be pretty damn tanky in this lane, but I mean, it's an ogre, right? And A in particular, someone who definitely knows what he's doing in that position 5 role, but this is just going to be unbelievably obnoxious for Moo to deal with. You even see some shenanigans there trying to pull the creep waves into each other in the river, and it was successful. So we have a new lane in the river, I guess. The supports are just going to trade a little bit back and forth, but Zfree gets sort of cut off there, but he does still have an opening to try and pull most of this back. But now look, Moo's even coming over. He realizes my creeps aren't where they're supposed to be. Coming over to try and get something out of that, but that is a very long distraction, and now We do have a pause. No one had actually DC'd at least, so that's the good news, but some early issues here for one squad or the other.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Lumiere might end up taking this creep wave underneath the tower, but this is also just really good from A. Beating the creep waves in such an awkward position here, Zfreak has two options. He either brings it over to the wave that Medusa is already might be taking under tower, or you hold it for 30 seconds, and sure, Moo is completely fine with that, but it just feels like now the Dark Willow is really put in a pretty sticky spot where you don't really want to do anything here. You might just want to give the creeps over to the Centaur and then G next. Oh,
Oh,
that's a be
forgot.
Granna go. He's going.
Forgot about that part where you sort of need to ask the other team, but both sides were ready and we are back underway. And yeah, we'll see what Moo does with this creep wave. Honestly, he's tanky enough where he could just hold it in this position, and that kind of does look like the game plan for now. So they don't quite want to push it all the way up to Lumiere, but that means the Medusa just gets to sit here and continue to farm, which is more than okay for that Medusa, as Lumiere, he's taken a little bit of damage so far, but nothing too significant, and I'm not really sure if this duo in particular, in the form of Moo and Z-Freak, are really going to be able to do too much to him. You have to pull the Medusa forward, then you need a Bramble, a Curse Crown, something of that nature into the Stomp, and even beyond that point, then you might be lacking damage to get through the Mana Shield. So it really does feel like Lumiere is just going to be safe in this lane. Moo is almost certainly just going to sit here and look for levels.
Yeah, and of course, as we talk about with all these tanky offlaners, once you get that Ring of Health, you're fine. You're out of the danger zone. You don't really need to be too concerned. The only concern for Infamous is just giving Lumiere absolutely everything. If he gets a Soul XP, he's fine. But yeah, bot, there's the Sentry. They got control on Infamous side, and unfortunately for Husky, I think he just stepped a little bit too far forward trying to get some creeps and just burned to that Gale.
Yeah, the Gale starts it off, I think. Yeah, Michael was the one to actually snipe it out with the Fade Bolt, but most of the heavy lifting coming in from that Venomancer, and oh, Sacred so far. Not really looking for the Plague Ward just yet, so we don't have that sort of pushing power at this stage, but they were certainly able to grab themselves first blood, and you look at Kosable, he does have to be, yeah, a little bit careful. That exact play comes in. You try to get any sort of last hits, you will be punished, and
Oh,
now...
it's so miserable.
Okay, maybe if Michael had the mana for the Fade Bolt there, they could have kept that chase going, but even without it, and the Ursa's kind of out of regen. Does Husky have anything for his teammate? Yeah, he does. Okay, the salve will be deployed, but this is time being wasted. This is time that the Ursa's not farming, so you are more than okay with this so far if you're Infamous.
Yeah, you're never going to be upset with this trade, and it's a good job from Husky keeping that large camp blocked up. If this creep wave ever gets away from Costabile's tower, the lane is just over for him. He can't actually do anything, and oh, mid. Getting real low.
Oh boy.
Gunner. He's got the raindrop, but yeah, playing with fire here.
Both players on empty bottles, though, so regen's starting to run a little bit low, but we do have water runes coming up in just a few seconds. Would not be surprised to just see both players back off to secure that, because they really do need the refills. So, Samum's able to grab one, Z-Freak guarding the other, and even a salve for him as well. So Gunner should be back up into a solid position. Doesn't want to lose that, though, because he's getting close to the Lesh, but should be able to get the full duration. And now, what is going on in the jungle? Z-Freak and A having a bit of a fight. A does not want to allow Z-Freak to get any significant stacks off in this area, so he continues to just sort of push into that area and be as obnoxious as possible, blocks out the camp as well, and all the while, down in the bottom lane, Michael and Sacred went in onto Husky again, pretty much the same play, and once again, the Weaver's not nearly tanky enough to survive it.
Costly.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Husky, it's that same situation where they nuke out the wave. Sure, Costabile is getting farm, he's getting last hits underneath tower, but you get none of that XP. So they know that it's level 1 Shikuchi. They know that he's not strong, and unfortunately for him, he is the pretty obvious target in that lane. At the same time, though, he is still fighting for a lot of the sentry control. He's doing a good job in that respect. It just is so hard for him to actually have any impact here. Maybe once he hits level 3, but it's still rough. But yeah, mid.
So tried to push in. That Lightning Storm did just bounce onto Gunner, and well, I mean, that's all it takes sometimes, right? You get the damage, you get the slow. Gunner was forced to use the Dissimulate, but the Lesh just kept pushing forward with the Pulse Nova, and that time at least, he's safe because the Bramble Maze gets thrown down by Z-Freak to sort of create that separation, but that's something you always need to be a little bit careful about on this Void Spirit. If you get clipped by that Lightning Storm, then the Lesh does have, obviously not a guaranteed kill, but an opening to try to pressure him up. So, bottom. Sacred getting jumped in on a little bit, but Costabile, again, he just takes too much damage from this. The Gale goes out, and he has to back himself away, so there's not a whole lot the Ursa can do there as middle lane. Okay, Gunnar and Simum will just trade each other out. The Lesh gets the kill first, however, so... Going his way just that little bit. Actually, gold technically favors Gunnar by... Okay, 18, but... Experience goes to the Lesh.
Yeah, I saw that kill from the start. It's sad for the Lesh. He just gets pulled underneath the tower after he right-clicks the Void Spirit already. So even though he has creeps and he knows he can be pretty safe, just ends up taking way too much damage. But getting that XP, that's all that matters.
Bot.
Yeah, nice play.
Jumps in. Can they get Michael before he
no.
TPs? Nah. Didn't have the Remnant, didn't have the damage, but I like that play from Husky to really set that up. He pushes basically into the exact same position as Z-Freak's going to get sort of caught out here in the east side jungle, but he pushes into the same position that he had gotten caught out the previous 2 times, so Infamous kind of just see a repeat of those last couple of kills. This time, though, it was a very well-played bait. They do lose a little bit of that with the Dark Willow getting picked off afterwards, but still a solid play, especially considering Gunnar is now starting to make some of those rotations.
Yep, and I think... Oh, he did.
A little bit of trouble there. Stuns.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Do they keep
but...
going at this? No. Okay. Simum doesn't want it. They'll just force out the Glyph mid.
Yep, and that's going to be incredibly important for Infamous in this early game. They force out Glyph, they force a response from 4 Zoomers. We might need to see even the Centaur get involved here from Moo, but he wants to get his own tower push going. Unfortunately, this is your mid tower, so it's a little bit awkward. I think Infamous are going to back off just a little bit here, give some more mana over to Simum before they go for plays like that again, but if they keep this Void Spirit defending mid, that's that safety that Sacred unfortunately didn't have whenever the Void had gotten kind of taken down and then had that easy TP response, but it's moments like that where Sacred, okay, got the Stampede.
In the bottom lane, trying to get Sacred. And
nice.
Yeah, they've more than got that. There's no backup for the Benno. Moo even TP'd in at the end, which ended up being unnecessary, but now he's here for the potential secondary fight as Costabile is going to get hit. Oh, boy. Hit up and taken down right away, so the bear is down, and... Well, if you're Moo, you're here to defend the tower now, at least, so that TP is going to come in handy, but the bear's just too low in the aftermath of that play. They didn't really see that maneuver coming as... Simum wants it. They're pushing. Moo's very low on HP. Getting some damage onto the tower as well, but yeah, they do not want to deal with this. Gunnar TP's in. I think Michael may have spotted it. They will just back themselves out. They've got A in for a little bit of extra support, but this is an Ogre with very limited mana. Would have to pop the mangoes to make anything happen here, and now you don't even really have a core hero. Simum has backed off, so not a whole lot to be done. Michael, though, still in the danger zone at this stage. Gunnar is continuing to track him, and they will make the jump in. And, well... That's going to be a relatively easy one for them. Sacred was nearby, but didn't really want to get involved in that fight.
Yeah, it's really well played. They're getting their heroes active. I think starting with that Stampede kill, that's something that Infamous don't really excel at. They don't have the easiest time playing this more defensive style lineup. Gunnar's going to get pressured a little bit here, but I think they just got away with murder. Might need to use a step at the very least, but yeah, it's fine. Doesn't really care about that. I don't even think Kostabile wanted to stay bottom. He was already kind of eating the majority of Sacred spells, so I think just got greedy on his rotation when he gets caught bottom. But now, you don't have Glyph still. You're going to see Infamous still make these matches. They're still going to look towards that bottom lane. And how do 4 Zoomers respond is going to be the question, because this is that timing where if you get a TP up on Gunnar, you suddenly kill someone whenever it's just him and the Ogre, and then you get this push delayed another 5 minutes, and then it feels absolutely awful for 4 Zoomers. But unfortunately for them, I think they're playing for their later timing. Moo doesn't have a Sword of Defiance, so they're just going to farm instead.
Tier 1 tower taken there by Simum, so going to work, trying to get those early objectives. Meanwhile, pushing to the Roche pit. Infamous...
They'll take this.
Do they know that this is happening? I think they suspect. Sacred is starting to push his way over. Roche, though, already too low. Costabile finishes it. They haven't taken the Aegis just yet, though. There we go. Gonna be able to pick it up, but now here comes Infamous looking for the fight. Costabile is gonna get stunned up. The Stampede will be used, though, trying to get into this engagement. And Simum, oh boy, he went right into the heart of that one without significant backup. He's taken out first, and now I don't really know if the rest of Infamous can take this fight. They don't even have Lumiere here. They're just gonna have to back away.
Yeah, Sacred doesn't have enough levels to actually make these engagements kind of ease up on them, and it's just a really nice play from 4 Zoomers. They traded their bot tower for that Roche, is one way to look at it. I don't know why Bailey took so long there to pick up the Aegis. Kind of scared me for a second, thinking that maybe the Venom board gets the deny, but at the same time, this is the problem now that Four Zoomers need to continuously exploit. Until this Medusa becomes the frontliner, this Lesh has no one to play with. This is just going to be Samum in front, taking a lot of damage. I think it's why we're seeing him not go for that greedy build. He's going immediately into the cloak. He needs items like that to actually survive. Without the Eternal Shroud, he is just going to eat all of this damage that unfortunately he just dies. There's no one to help him out in that regard. That's where, again, this infamous lineup is going to feel great in another 10, 15 minutes, but until then, they really need to be careful, because every single death on this Lesh matters, and, well, a little bit messy on the rune there, but Lumiere getting involved is exactly what they need right now, especially with Stampede on cooldown.
Yeah, they know they have an opening to just push their way forward, try and take this tower. It's the glyph. I mean, it's going to slow it down here, but really does feel like Infamous could just press on and lay claim to this. Husky obviously doing his best there with the swarm, but this is not really a situation where the Weaver is actually looking for a fight. Can't even really take one. Maybe he could get a... No. Deny window is not there. The DD rune from the Medusa allows Lumiere to finish it off, so... 5-man group up mid, take the tower, open up the south side jungle to a rather sizable degree, and continue to farm up on these heroes to, as you mentioned, ET, sort of hit that timing window later on.
Yeah, and once they hit it, I mean, that's where Four Zoomers are really going to struggle, but Four Zoomers also just need to do a really good job of taking their opponents kind of to these awkward areas of the map. Once Infamous gets set up, it is really difficult to deal with them. It's where heroes like the Veno and the Medusa just excel, but it's also their biggest weakness, where suddenly you have to get set up. You have to spend 30 seconds in a lane before you can either push it or really feel safe in those areas, and that's where Four Zoomers can definitely try and split their opponents just a little bit more, I think. Unfortunately, you don't have any tower push. The best hero to take down a lot of these towers and put pressure on it is actually just the Centaur, but Mu is focusing on his own farm instead. We might see a little bit of a lull here, even though they are smoking with the Diffusal on the Ursa, but don't think this is necessarily going to net them anything. Could find Sacred, but they would love Lesh. I'll have to take him.
Force Staff, though,
What
getting
a
Sacred
fort.
over the cliff, and he's just going to TP away. The Terrorize is too late.
Ooh.
Wow. Fast reaction times from the Veno, and, well, talked about that in the draft a little bit. The Veno's another hero to pick up something like a Yule's or a Force Staff to make the Ursa's day that little bit harder. And, well, Force Staff is perfectly timed out, and I do like the instinct there from Z-Freak. It's just he needed to start that maybe a half second earlier, and they would have had it. But they now know the Diffusal's up on the Ursa, and they are looking potentially for a bit of a counter move here. Lumiere obviously is just here for the farm, but supports are throwing down a little bit of vision, doing some scouting, and speaking of scouting, Husky, wow, he is very far back here behind the tier 2 tower. Not a whole lot for him to do in this area, but he can also confirm there's no Medusa farming up in any of these immediate camps, so Four Zoomers sense something's wrong, they pop the scan, they get a positive result, and they know that their opponents are out looking for them.
Yeah, and it's this game on tippy toes where for Zoomers they need, I think, a little bit more farm on both the Centaur and the Void Spirit before they really make any of these plays. I mean, Gunner is really low. He just hasn't had any time to farm for himself. I think that's why he goes for these Boots of Travel. It's a really nice item to recover in the game, but unfortunately, recovering versus Medusa does not sound very pretty. It just feels like maybe we're going into this kind of slower paced style where I think once this blink is completed on the Centaur, you kind of just need to start running at Infamous, because unfortunately, if Lumiere just gets to farm, he's going to be a bloodlusted Medusa. He doesn't have items like the Scotty queued up just yet. He's going for that Dragon Lance, because of course, Force Staffs, Hurricane Pikes, they're so good versus the Ursa, but at the same time, it's exactly what he wants to do, because Four Zoomers aren't exactly putting that pressure onto the Snake at all. Lumiere hasn't gotten very involved in this game yet, but the fight hasn't been brought to him either.
Yeah, they've just sort of left him alone, allowed him to farm up to his heart's content, and not really asking him to do much more. I think the most he got involved was that push mid that he was a part of that got the tier 1 tower. Other than that, he's just been farming up in the jungle, moving between the camps, and it's already something you don't want to let the Medusa do. As you mentioned, now you got the Bloodlust on you pretty consistently, so I don't know. If you're Four Zoomers, you got to try to do something. You picked up this early Diffusal Blade for a reason. As you mentioned, the Blink's coming along, and, well, Gunner, item-wise, not super impressive, but he can still be there in the fights. That is one of the best parts of the Void Spirit's kit. You've still got that damage and mobility. to contribute here, but it needs to be contributed to something, which it's a little bit strange to see four Zoomers playing so far back when we were mentioning they needed to be the squad sort of going for the more up-tempo style.
Well, and of course, you know, you got the first Roche. It's all that really mattered. Just to get it on cooldown, you didn't get to do anything in Lumiere. Okay, they're getting run at.
Making the jump onto Moo in the middle lane as well. Can they get either of these kills? They will get Moo, but Lumiere was able to get away. So Infamous turned that into a positive trade. They take down the offlaner. The Stampede is committed, and they still find the kill, and they get their own hero out of there. Michael was able to steal a Stampede of his own, which is honestly the main reason why that Lumiere actually gets away. So, well, now you've got an opening, right? Centaur's down. He doesn't have his ult when he's back up, so see Samum making his way down bot. They're going to look to try and maybe push a tower, but Gunnar and Husky are both here. They're bringing Z-Freak over as well. And they get the kill. There's the barrier coming out, though, so a lot of that damage gets absorbed. Gunnar is falling back. Gustable, though, is TPing in. They want to actually keep the fight going. They're on to that Ogre first, but now Sacred, he dropped down the ult, so these heroes have to sort of fall back. Gunnar, in particular, needs to be careful. The DOT is really sort of doing a number on him. I think he's going to be okay. Oh, maybe not. Hold on. He might need to be denied. The Dissimulate, though? Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's only the Nova, which won't kill him.
At the same time, though, four Zoomers kind of have to react like that just because they know they don't have Glyph. At the same time, Infamous recognize that they get permanent damage here if four Zoomers aren't reacting just appropriately. And I think Infamous back out so quickly just because they don't have that Stone Gaze. Otherwise, maybe they press a little bit harder for that Void Spirit kill. At the same time, though, it's just a defense. They have to ditch this top tower push that honestly was looking pretty good for them because they are so afraid of that activity, because it's not just the bottom tower. As soon as they claim that, they're also looking at mid, and then suddenly you're so down the exchange just kind of naturally. And Lumiere, very interestingly, is going for the Ags build, and okay, Z-Freak went for the Yules there, but once you get this Aghanim Scepter, it's actually so difficult to deal with this Medusa, especially if you're the Ursa. It gets you to use that Enrage just a little bit sooner, and unfortunately for Costabile, we're getting to that situation where you are playing Ursa versus Venomancer, where the game is going to get so annoying for you to play once they get set up, and without some really tight smokes, I think, from four Zoomers, we might see this Roche just get a little bit too hard for them to actually contest, because what do they do once the wards are actually placed? Once the Medusa has another item, it's going to be very scary for them to deal with, and Samum has the Yules, so here's their guaranteed play. They've loved Costabile.
They're going to get onto the bear. Samum, yeah, don't hit the Ancient first. Go for the kill. They're going to hit up the Ursa. The Enrage was popped, so he's not dead just yet, but there's going to be that Stolen Stampede coming in to keep the Ursa in their sights. Not going to allow him to get away. Z-Freak tries to go in for the Terrorize, but realizing it's going to come out too late at that point. Costabile is already taken down, and that was really the straight-up best kill that Infamous could have found in that scenario. Unfortunately, their creep wave needs to take some time to catch back up, so they can't push onto the tier 2 immediately, and Lumiere actually doesn't even really want to be there. He TP's bot to deal with the pushing wave of his own, so objectives maybe not in the cards for them, but with the Ursa down, there's not a whole lot that four Zoomers can do right now, and ET, I'm so incredibly surprised. We were talking about item timings, right? The Diffusal was ready, the Blink Dagger was ready. They haven't really gone on the offensive, and now the Diffusal Blade, it's still a threat, but it feels like that big window where, oh damn, Ursa's got his Diffusal, what do we do? That's gone. Infamous don't really care as much about it anymore.
Oh, and with Costabile switching up gears towards this BKB as well, it's just a little bit messy, because of course you don't want to have this be your second item. You want your Aegis to be your BKB, and you just want to immediately rush the Blink Dagger to cause hell for that backline on Infamous that they really can't fix. Like, aside from buying Force Staffs and Glimmer Capes, it's something that it's an inherent issue that Infamous kind of have to play around, but unfortunately, four Zoomers are definitely losing a lot of the plays that they could possibly make in this game, and you always hate to see it, but Lumiere's just getting more and more farmed, and sure, Z-Freak, he's walking up here, but again, it's just a solo play. He has no backup here, and I think that's also where Gunnar, going for the item build that he's gone for, we're seeing them play towards a much later timing where they're definitely just banking on those Roche fights. They're waiting for Infamous to come knocking on the door, and they're not really able to make those same plays for themselves, which is a little bit unfortunate, because you always hope to see four Zoomers looking for those opportunities. Now it feels like we're going to end up in a farm fest almost, and a farm fest versus both Leshek and Medusa sounds really unideal for four Zoomers, and We'll have to see, because this next Roche really is that important. I think Infamous, of course, just scouted it out with the Plague Wards, but they are the team that unfortunately can't do it by themselves. They almost need 4 Zoomers to start it before they can ever make that rotation. But at the same time, if Infamous make the play in your towers, you force 4 Zoomers into a really difficult choice.
Okay. 5-man smoke. Ags finished up on Dusa. Sacred just got himself a halberd, so they have so many tools at their disposal to try and deal with aggression in general, but the Ursa in particular. Costabile is just not going to be able to hit targets all that consistently, and he's actually the target here, as they are going to pop the stuns onto him. The Enrage was used preemptively, so he's not going to go down immediately, but I mean, not going down immediately means you just die 3 seconds later than you normally would have. That is a clean hit from Infamous, and you mentioned before, they do still have some issues going into Roshan, so I'm not really sure if they want to try it, but with Ursa dead, 4Zoomers really can't contest this, so well, they feel like they have a wide enough window to go for it. The Swarm did get thrown in by Husky, so they're aware this is happening, but I really don't know if they want to take the risk to push in. Maybe a well-placed Terrorize could set up some sort of maneuver, but at this point, it already feels too late. Roshan's just dropping.
And I think Sacred, maybe
Sacred?
the distraction play a little bit, but oh, they're gonna lose someone, yeah. And now no steal play. You don't have any chance for it. It's long and arduous, but this is exactly what they wanted. It feels like 4Zoomers are starting to lose control here. Costabile's got to do something crazy with this BKB timing. He has it. He's going to be able to at least make something happen here, but, well, bye,
Catch
Weaver.
a no ult Husky, yeah. Will be taken down. Michael steals the Shikuchi as well, and as we always sort of take to saying, Rubik tends to be a better Weaver than the Weaver. It is only a level 1 Shikuchi at this point, so maybe that won't hurt quite as significantly, but I'm not really sure what can be done here. Lumiere's got the Aegis. He picked up the Shard from that Roche as well, so you just can't go onto him.
Yeah, it feels like the damage is definitely going to start becoming a problem, and not to just mention that they also are giving Lumiere the tome now, because they know he's coming up on that level 20 timing, where suddenly you are really unhappy. And nice jump on the Rubik. Oh, but
Staff is there, though. Pushes him away. There's going to be the Stone Gaze to push themselves forward. Moo tries to get away. The Stampede does eventually come out, and Costabile, he wants into the fight. BKB active going on to Samum. They're going to be able to take down the Leshrac at least, so that is a big first kill, but they still have to deal with that big bad Medusa. Lumiere continues to dish out the damage. He's going to be able to take down Z-Freak with the Snake. He dodges out of the Curse Crown with the Manta. And now, I don't know if the Ursa wants to be here. There's going to be the Disarm. He is in some serious trouble. Gunner, though, trying to keep the fight going, dissimulating onto Sacred. But this fight is rapidly breaking apart. Costabile is just going to try to get himself away from it. Michael blinks his way forward, goes in for the Fade Bolt, will find the kill. And they still haven't dealt with Lumiere. He continues to just hack away. Sacred does die, but and you can pick off everyone around Lumiere, but if you can't get the Medusa, he's still just going to be able to walk away. He lost literally everyone on his side, but 4Zoomers, they still pay such a heavy price. 4 or 5 heroes dead. I think there was a buyback in there from at least Z-Freak. I think Moo used his as well, or no, Moo actually just waited his out, so not quite as expensive, but still a very strange fight.
Yeah, it just feels ugly for them to take. Of course, they found their opening, they found their opportunity onto the Leshrac, which they're always going to take, but that's where, unfortunately, I don't think you really had your moments on a lot of your heroes here. Of course, losing Moo at the beginning there is just worst case scenario. I don't think he expected to die that fast, or that his opponent still had the Stampede, which is just a little bit unfortunate, but at the same time, we still have this big bad Medusa that you did a good job of ignoring in the last fight, but this Daedalus is unfortunately not a plaything. You are just going to start losing heroes now if you're not actually able to deal with Lumiere, and you're already seeing him feeling confident enough to put pressure onto this building. And of course, for Zoomers, they're making the plays they need. They get the top outpost, they get the top tier 2 tower, but until we see any aggression on this mid tier 1, it's so easy for Infamous to control such a large area of the map. It's very hard for 4Zoomers to actually get in these areas that Infamous just simply surround, and you see them looking for the Weaver bottom, they don't get him, but at the same time, there is not that same level of pressure that you can put on. Gunner is at your tier 3 tower right now, and Infamous, they don't even really need to look to go back unless they feel like there's a cart in the lane, if they feel like there's a Centaur who's going to get some of that retaliate damage, but if there's not that threat, then unfortunately, Lumiere is just going to sit here and kill all your buildings.
Setting up onto another tier 2. Creep waves coming up behind him, and, well, 4Zoomers just kind of drifting right now. They're not going for anything in particular. They're still trying to sort of farm up on these heroes. You see Moo working his way towards a BKB. Gunner is looking for the Aghanims upgrade, as he's going to actually cancel his TP as he sees his teammate getting jumped in on here in the river. Z-Freak, well, trying to buy some time, but even inside of that Shadow Realm, there's just too much sort of AoE damage that Infamous can throw out there to hit him up, so Z-Freak does get taken down. Sacred gets the kill. Gunner, still here. Still just sort of sitting in the middle, but you look at the damage on the Tier 3 tower. You mentioned earlier they didn't really need to send anyone back on the Infamous side. That just really isn't much of a concern until they want to actually push the Tier 1 themselves in that top lane. Then maybe they start sending somebody back, but until then, it's kind of a non-factor at the moment.
And really, Gunner is doing a good job. He's going to show his TP in the bot lane, so I think Infamous are going to give up on this kill. But, oh, Moo, are you going to eat the death instead? Yeah, he placed the ward up here, and I think he might be just walking steadily towards his death.
Michael blinks in with a stolen Bedlam, gets off the telekinesis. Moo's going to look for the TP, immediately canceled by the Fire Blast, and yeah, they are going to be able to bring him down. Moo just has nowhere to go. Michael, stealing Double Edge. Not overly useful for the Rubik, but they find the kill, and they put an end to that push, and now, mentioned earlier on, if they want to go for the Tier 1, they do have to get that wave out. Lumiere, well, he can at least take the Tier 1, I guess, without the creep wave. There's no backdoor protection. The Tier 2, though, may have to wait an extra couple of seconds, but the creep wave is coming. But now, Aegis is timed out, so if you're 4Zoomers, the Medusa is, I'm not going to say weak, maybe weaker than she was before without the Aegis, but still an incredibly hard kill for them to take.
I mean, how do you get her off your tower? I mean, what do? You need to do something, of course, but we're past the realm of the Centaur being that hero that could just simply stand in front. If he goes for that same kind of play, then he just dies. He just gets stunned up by the Fire Blast and right-click to death. It's where this Daedalus really is just go time. And Kostabile, I think he's got his blink. They need to find the backline here. They need to find the easy punish onto either Michael or Sacred. Unfortunately, Sacred's got so many obnoxious items to deal with, and okay.
They're going to try the Lumiere. That's not an easy kill. They get through the Mana Shield fairly quickly, though, and okay. They've got it. They take down A as well. Sacred, okay, TP canceled by the Yule, so they should be able to clean him up as well, and that goes remarkably well. The Ursa's able to get in, gets his full damage out, burns through the shield quickly, and I mean, I said it wasn't going to be an easy kill, but that didn't really seem overly complicated for them. They rushed forward, and it's not just the Lumiere kill. They were able to catch a couple of stragglers there on the back end as well, and Infamous now have to be a little bit careful. That is going to reset the momentum ever so slightly. They need the Medusa back up before they can really do anything further.
Yeah, I think they just overstayed their welcome. They didn't have Aegis. 4Zoomers knew they didn't have Aegis. I don't think they were aware of the Ursa Blink Dagger, but at the same time, Infamous were so ready for that jump that everyone was so far away from the Medusa. They just thought that Lumiere wasn't a target. They thought there was no way that 4Zoomers are going to begin this fight by just trying to burst the snake, and unfortunately, they kind of call your bluff there, and that's the one drawback of just not having items like the Scotty on the Medusa, where this Daedalus is great, but it is your opportunity to actually kill her. The next item is going to be incredibly important for Lumiere, but it's a big mistake, honestly, from Infamous that now 4Zoomers, they get to finish a lot of those big items. I mean, after that fight goes so well, you get Spirit Vessel, you get Ags completed, you've got 3,000 gold on the Centaur. That's honestly massive for 4Zoomers.
Yeah, and Gunner, who was in recovery mode for a lot of this game, is suddenly looking so intimidating. So you've got your sort of secondary damage dealer to back up the Ursa, and now they're looking to go on the offensive. Gunner, Moo, and Husky have smoked up, and see what they can find. We've got Sacred and Samum both hanging out mid, and either one of those would really make for a fantastic target. Who can they get the jump on here? Dissimulate, not going to be used to push forward. But now Infamous are aware something's going on, but there's going to be the Stampede. They're going to push in. They take down Samum first. They're going to be able to get onto A as well for the secondary kill. And, I mean, we saw Lumiere go down pretty quickly, but Samum in that situation, he didn't really get to pop the Shroud. No BKB purchased up just yet, so he just gets melted, really, within a couple of seconds.
Yeah, and also, really good ward placed by Husky in the middle of the lane, but also just that blinking from Moo. That's just brutal. And not to mention that 4Zoomers keep on finding these fights at nighttime. That's where the vision coming in from the Plague Wards really isn't that much. It's where your observers are way more powerful, and I think 4Zoomers are doing a really good job of catching them off guard. It's the second time a core just dies instantly. It's a nice blink from Michael. Or what was that? Just got out.
Hmm. Yeah, his blink's not on cooldown. Okay. Not 100% sure, but just sort of testing the defenses to a certain extent was Gunnar there as he just sort of jumped in, see if he could, what he could get. That extra dissimulate ring sort of allowing him to back away immediately, but now they know Gunnar's not with the rest of his team, and Infamous are going to try to take advantage of that. They do push in onto Z-Freak, but, well, they're not even really going to be able to do too much here. They don't have the cancel for the TP, so Z-Freak just walks away. I mean, I guess they take the outpost back. That's not nothing. It allows Samum to rejoin his teammates, but you don't really have an advantage at the moment, and Roshan is respawning in about 10 seconds, so we shall see how this fight plays out. Was that a shroud picked up by Gunnar? Yes, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Not a pickup we see too often.
It's interesting stuff. I think at least it's a good item that builds against the Venomancer, of course. You're always not going to be unhappy. You got the casual hood before, so might as well. But Gunnar gave away that outpost area, I think, saying that we couldn't hold in the first place, and then instead gets that split push bottom. But it is a huge smoke. It's the same area. They got the D word at the very least, but it's daytime. Sacred.
Or staff. Gonna help him get away. Still takes a lot of damage, but at least he's able to fall back. Michael, meanwhile, stole the Astral. Okay. A lot more maneuverability now for the Rubik. Oh, yeah, that DD rune picked up. Can they push in for a fight, though? They get the stun onto Gunnar. Hitting him from the low ground. Dissimulate, though, does come out, so he's able to fall back, but you saw that. Lumiere crit him for about 1,000 damage on one of those hits, so still have to be incredibly careful on the 4-zoomer side. If you are in the crosshairs of that Medusa for any extended period of time, you are still going to be in a very dangerous scenario.
And it looks like they want to try to get a smoke and then go for that huge wraparound, but Lumiere is just hitting. He doesn't care.
Throw the swarm in, but look at the splitter. It's just going on top of each other with that upgrade. But ooh, they want the jump in. They're on to Lumiere first. Can they actually bring him down this time? They're trying for it. They do get the kill. Lumiere dead. Samum gone as well. And fight's over. At this point, Infamous just have to fall back with anybody they still have standing, but there's not too many heroes alive. They'll lose Sacred. A gets picked off as well. And Michael, he really has nowhere to go. Blink canceled. He will fall in his own silence, or not his own silence, excuse me, Gunnar's silence, but it's a full 5-man wipe. They finish off Roshan. Kostable's just going to grab everything while he has the opportunity, and I mean, ET, there's no survivability on some of these cores that they desperately need to keep alive. They're not able to take that protracted fight because Lumiere and Samum are the first two to die.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's a really nice play from Gunnar. Gunnar's the one keeping them on these back, but they're so split off from their Medusa because, again, I think they feel like Lumiere should be fine in these situations, but he's not getting forced. He's not getting sent out. He's eating so much damage just during that initial Stampede jump. I mean, I was watching his HP bar. He died with only 6 Fury Swipe stacks or something like that, and unfortunately now, Infamous just feel like they're kind of overestimating a lineup that I think they really need to kind of check themselves in. Okay, doesn't have the lift though. Oh, what a stun.
Okay, Fire Blast is there to follow it up. Now the telekinesis comes through, so Gunnar, well, he ate the cheese at the very last second, so he is still alive. Now Samum's going to get caught. He cannot afford to be that far forward. He's going to get stunned by the Curse Crown, taken down by Moo. And they are so staggered now. The Medusa's back in, but there's really not a lot of backup. But Lumiere has no choice. He has to fight. If they give up now, they're going to lose the racks. So they try to push their way forward. Gunnar, again, dropping low. Doesn't have the cheese this time, but the damage output just isn't here. Lumiere's getting locked down. He's been hit up by the Terrorize, pushed back in. The Force Staff is going to allow him to fall back and reset, though. But they still haven't killed anyone. There we go. They're able to take down the first life on the bear, but they used so much in that engagement, and they're not going to be able to go in on to Kostable a second time.
And sure, you use the cheese, you use the Aegis, but I think you're fine with that. That is just everything. You killed the Leshrac again in a situation where they were just a little bit too far forward, and unfortunately, they're just getting punished time and time again. It feels like Infamous think that their cores are going to be fine, and then they just simply aren't. That's also just Kostabile with the Nullifier reveal there that caught everyone off guard. There's nothing they could really do to react to that, but now, what an observer. They're trying to catch people out.
They get the root. Force Staff's going to push him back. That leaves Michael out in the cold, though, so they're just going to collapse onto that Rubik. And they take him down pretty quickly. So Michael has to play the part of the sacrificial lamb. Normally, you'd be okay with that, but in this scenario, that kind of
Ooh.
sucks because he was the hero who bought back in that last engagement, so not only do you invest a lot of your money into that play, you're now down for 60 seconds, and for Zoomers, they haven't exactly backed off here. They're still in a very forward offensive position.
Yeah, and you really just look at Lumiere and you think, man, would this game be easier if he had a Scotty right now? It just feels like there's nothing to actually hold this pair back, and oh well,
Cool. A,
he doesn't
not
even have
dead
Aegis.
yet, but they're going to lose him. Samum, he's trying, but I feel like at this point the Leshrac has lost a lot of his power. He can't get these kills alone. They really do need Lumiere to be there alongside the Leshrac in order to pick anything up, so but there really is no significant punish there. It's going to be the Ogre taken down. A has to use his buyback. Now Sacred gets hit up by the Remnant. They're going to jump it onto him as well. The Venomancer immediately blown up. And Infamous, you can't afford to be giving up kills like this. They're just getting so consistently picked off. The tier 3 tower will now fall, and well, for Zoomers, I mean, they can keep on pushing. They can take the racks here until the Medusa's confirmed into the fight. They don't have to worry, and oh my god, Samum, he's getting hit up again, able to fall back this time around, but now the Terrorize takes Lumiere back to the fountain. Curse Crown's going to stun him up as well, so they're just buying so much time on the front line for 4 Zoomers. Gunner wants to push in for the fight, though. Jumping onto Michael, they'll take him down first. There is a follow-up stun onto Z-Freak, but that's not going to be enough to matter. A just gets absolutely annihilated. Now they're in onto the Dusa. Lumiere has to try and fall back. He does pop a BKB, though, but I don't think he can do this alone. All of his teammates have been taken down. He's already used the Stone Gaze as it does now wear away, and well, lo and behold, 4 Zoomers are still standing. Low HP on a lot of their heroes, but they've got all 5 heroes up and running, and I don't know, Infamous, just some weird decisions on their part itemization-wise. They do manage to take Husky down, but Husky buys back. Okay, that is some move. Buys back, time lapses into his opponent's base, and now, well, Lumiere once again alone. No backup, no buybacks. He just has to try and do some sort of
Oh, he's just dead.
miraculous play here. I mean, yeah, what does he do? Force Staff is
Force?
going to be there.
No.
Not enough. And he's dead with no buyback. I think, honestly, that should just be the end of it. Infamous really don't have much left to work with. They don't have their tier 4s getting hit up as of yet, but yeah, they know. At this point, we can't take these fights. They call GG. This is... I'm still not entirely sure how we got here, ET. This should not have really gone down this way, but Infamous kind of hand 4 Zoomers an opportunity, and they more than take advantage of it.
Yeah, they go from very confidently playing with the Aegis, pushing into that top lane, of course, after it had expired a minute prior, and then they lose the Snake. The Snake dies once there, they wait for Roche to respawn, 4 Zoomers don't give him a clean fight, they get a couple picks mid, and then they lose the Snake in the pit. I mean, that was just a really strange way for them. I wonder what win probability says. Unfortunately, the coordinator is doing coordinator things, but
Yeah.
that is just crazy because it really felt like there was no like Costa Bile had such a bad game until those 2 kills, and really then everyone was just reinvigorated on the 4 Zoomer side. Everyone got their game back. You had Husky who had levels. You had the Dark Willow who suddenly has a Yule Scepter. Everybody just got so much off of what feels like those 2 instances that the game just flipped on its head. I feel like they really kind of ended up doing a bad job of covering their cores, and unfortunately they die to 1 or 2 item timings from that Ursa, and then they just can't take a clean fight after it. I think all as well, the Medusa took so much damage from those stampedes both times, and losing her in those situations, you had force staffs, you had items build up to defend your cores. Unfortunately, they were so afraid of getting jumped themselves that I think they almost scared themselves into a lot of those positions where their whole idea of we get set up, we win the fight because we have all of these things that we just lay down on the ground just never came to fruition. It felt like they really weren't able to get that game plan going after that second Aegis expired, and unfortunately, everything just kind of fell apart all at once for them.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not entirely sure how we got there because it just happened so rapidly, as you were sort of discussing. Lumiere just... There was no survivability. He wasn't tanky. Samum was in the exact same position. If anyone touches them, they just blow up. So, I don't know. I think they got a little overconfident. I think they decided, you know, we don't need the Force Staffs right away. We don't need BKBs this early on. As you repeatedly mentioned, Lumiere thinking, I don't think I really need a Scotty. That ended up being very much the wrong call to make, and well, Infamous do end up paying for it. So they looked like they had outdrafted their opponents on paper, but in terms of the actual execution, for Zoomer showing us really the strength of this lineup. So they do walk away with the win here. As we mentioned, can't show you any stats, or could not show you any stats initially because the coordinator was being updated. So with that in mind, we are just going to move on to that second game. 4Zoomers now in a position to look for the 2-0 sweep, whereas Infamous are going to have to try and push their way back into this to force a full 3-game series. So we will be stepping away for just a moment, but when we return, it'll be the start of the Game 2 draft. Infamous versus 4Zoomers coming up.